the UK got the vaccine and they have started the vaccination since yesterday. So to discuss further, let me invite my friend from London, Mr. Naval Gund.
Good morning, CK. Good morning, everybody. Yes, fantastic day. The vaccines have started and we're on the way to recovery. And that's the way I see it anyway. How about you?
Well, in my country, what is going on? There are people who are waiting for it eagerly, and there are other set of people who are just indifferent, and there are third set of people which is very large. They are sort of negative towards this. They are saying, "Hey, this vaccine may work, may not work. We don't know, etc., etc." So I was thinking about the the science and technology. Way back in 1860, there were very eminent scientists who announced that whatever we could discover, we have already discovered. We are at the pinnacle of the development, and there is nothing more to do. And this was in 1860. And in 1905, Einstein came up with his general theory of relativity, and that turned the whole world upside down. So in 1860, they were saying, hey, whatever we had to do, we have already done. There's nothing more to do. Whereas we again restarted the whole thing in 1905. So I think my opinion is there is no end to any development. There is no end to negative thinking. There will be negative naysayers all the time, but we have to move forward.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And the thing about where we currently are is there are still people that refuse to take the MMR vaccine, and yet there's a horrific issue with regards to children getting measles or mumps and rubella, as they call it, MMR, measles, mumps and rubella. That was the vaccination. But the interesting thing for me is, if you were to ask these same people, would you like to go on a trip to the moon? What do you think the answer would be?
They will very frankly, the answer will be all three options. There will be guys.
Oh, definitely all three options. But for the majority of people that were in that negative arena, and if you gave them a little excitement, would you like a trip to the moon? How many of those negative people do you think would say, yeah, I'd like to go to the moon? What percentage do you think?
I would say 50% of the negative people will definitely turn their votes towards positive.
Well, and so I mean, we're just having a bit of banter here. But the point is, yeah, I agree with you. I think a lot of people would say, "Oh, a trip to the moon. Now that's a different opportunity." And yet, there are far more risks for a trip to the moon than there are in taking this vaccine. And that's the reality of life. The vaccine has far less risk than getting in a spaceship and going to the moon. It is incredibly risky to go to the moon, even today, where they can't guarantee that everything's going to work perfectly. When you see those rockets take off, and I know we're now into SpaceX, so now we're into the commercial arena. No more NASA flights. They're buying seats on SpaceX, as you and I have both seen in the past. Even in those control rooms, there is this moment of anticipation, intrepidation of we pray for success. There is no praying for success of this vaccine. The Pfizer one has got 95% chance of being successful. That's massive. So for all those negative people out there, just think about what we're saying. Because the worst case, what I see is nearly 60,000 people have died in the UK, allegedly because of the COVID pandemic. Probably more people have died because they haven't gone to accident emergency when they've been having strokes and heart attacks. I mean, who knows of the secondary issues, the people that have had cancer treatment delayed, the people that have had major surgery delayed because this pandemic has actually taken over our health service, which is allegedly one of the best in the world. So, it, is this a risk? Yeah, of course it's a risk. You know, crossing the road is a risk, frankly. Certainly, crossing the road in Delhi is a risk because you know you take your life in your own hands. But at the same time, I take a lot of comfort from the chief medical officer in the UK, Professor Van Dam, who's been on the TV several times recently. He's almost like a celebrity status doctor, really. And he said, as soon as the vaccine is available, I will tell my mother to take it. I will advise my mother to take it. His mother's well into her 80s. And if he's saying, I will advise my mother to take it, and I'm going to take it, then frankly, who am I to say this medical expert that has been doing this all of his life? He's been preparing for this vaccine since March of this year. So he's been following this very, very carefully. The testing strategy, the efficacy of the testing strategy. He probably had a lot to do with the testing strategy. I don't know, but he's a pretty important guy in the UK, and I'm sure he's been watching this every step of the way. And then you've had independent body, a completely independent body that hasn't had a backhander, hasn't been paid by Pfizer to railroad this vaccine through, because they are above that level. And they're coming on TV and saying, no, we've not cut corners. Yes, we've pushed it through, but we threw people at it to push it through. And I think this is where people are questioning, you know, why does it take 10 years for this to happen? And we've managed to do it in not just less than a year, probably about 8 months. And the issue is they've thrown money at it. They've moved the goalpost. They've pushed everything else out of the way. Nothing else has been on the priority list. This has had number one priority, and the likelihood is everything else has just been pushed to one side. That's the reason, and anyone in business knows, if you focus on it for a very short period of time and you throw money at it and throw people at it and resources at it, you're going to get the result that you would do if you spread it over time. Does that make sense? I mean, it makes sense to me.
Well, I think we started discussing about the moon trips of mankind, and you're absolutely right when you say when you throw money in it and you throw people in it. In the moon program, 350,000 people were actively involved to send 12 men on the moon. So I think that is where the reality of the situation is. I think I am fully on board. And if the Indian government says, hey, there is a vaccine available, I will, given a chance, I will go for it. Simply because there is no end to stopping this virus, because we have heard that the virus is now affecting the nervous system. Instead of attacking the respiratory system, in certain cases, it directly enters the brain and affect the nervous system. And so we don't know how this virus mutates. So it's better to take vaccine so that you don't have any sort of conditions against this virus. So I think to answer your question, I will go for it. And the good news is the Pfizer has approached Indian government, and also one of the Indian companies has approached the Indian government to allow them to start vaccination process in India. So the Indian Medical Association is looking into it. The Prime Minister of India has also announced that within a matter of 2 to 3 weeks, we will have the vaccine available from multiple companies in India. And the modus operandi of distribution of this medicine, which is Pfizer one, and also the Indian vaccine, would be given to the frontline workers first, and then it will reach the needy ones. So when we say emergency use, the government actually means it will be given to the frontline workers and people, citizens who are above 60, who are in need of the vaccine. So I think given a chance, I will go for it. I will have my family go for it. whatever it takes, whatever money, if there is a charge for the vaccine, we will go, pay the charge, and get it.
Well, I can't advise you to do what your brain is telling you what to do. I mean, the thing is, I'm just a very logical person, and I've seen and heard, experienced firsthand the catastrophic impact that this virus has had. I've lost people around the world that I've known for years, healthy people in many respects, just old, and their time came up long before it should have done. So for me, bring it on. Give me that vaccine as the earliest opportunity. I'm really pleased that the Indian government and the Prime Minister is moving it ahead, because it's the only way to eradicate this problem. I mean, just think of when you used to cut yourself as a kid. You didn't think much of it. You put a plaster on it, and that was it. As you got a little older, um, we had this thing called tetanus, and the doctor would give you a tetanus, and then you get a booster. Um, there was not a great deal of proof around how long what the side effects, etc., etc. But because the downside was so horrific, tetanus, the problem is lockjaw, as they call it. Where you literally your jaw locks. You can't move it. Can't think of anything worse really than not being able to speak. But there's another thing. And yes, of course, all the testing hasn't been done. Over here, there's been this issue about pregnant women, and it's quite specific that no, there is no approval for this to be used on pregnant women. And why? Because not sufficient testing has been done on pregnant women. So if you recall, we had the thalidomide issue in the 60s. Birth control was an issue, and a lot of women that gave birth to these children with significant issues can be traced to the thalidomide pill as the time, or injection. We're way beyond that. We're way beyond that. We haven't got the testing regime that we had then. They don't take those risks, and I'm sure that whole thalidomide arena tightened up the regulation. So we can be thankful to these things that do tighten up. We do learn by our mistakes and our experiences, and in this particular instance, we've been told here that there is such a backlash of the naysayers, because they're out there. They're not just in India, in their droves. They're in the UK. They're in the US. And the main thing here is we've even got the Queen. Her Royal Highness Queen Elizabeth II is going to go on TV and say she's had the vaccine. Now, she's 95 years old, and a lot of people will say, well, if the Queen's had it, I'm going to have it too. So they're trying to bring out all the stops over here to say, please take the vaccine. And the reason for that is the alternative is much worse. So think of it as going to the moon. Yes, please. But the risks are far less.
I think, Neville, I think UK government must be preparing a list of people who would get the vaccine first and second and third. I hope your name figures there as soon as possible. And I'm quite happy for the people of UK that they got the first privilege to get the vaccine. I think we will be the second one in India. And, I think all of us should go for the vaccine. Don't wait for virus to affect you in any way, because virus is mutating. The best thing to do is take the vaccine and pray for the best.
Yeah, exactly. Prayer always helps, but please don't over question the fact that efficacy has been pushed to one side because money, a lot of people are saying money talks. You know, people have pushed this through far too quickly. Go and look at the evidence, go and listen to the experts. And remember, a lot of these experts are completely independent. But listen to the ones that are the experts and have a happy life.
Certainly, Neville. So we will talk about some other pressing issue. I think today is about the vaccination because it started yesterday in UK. Uh, but definitely, we will catch up with you next in the next discussion tomorrow. Until then, I'd like to say goodbye.
Goodbye and happy life, as they say.
Thank you.
Cheerio.